have you gotten to explore those places as well? Like where some of your DMT depths taken you?
Oh, I mean, I don't know how many there are. There's
Mm,
never been an end to them, and some I go back to at different times, and others I've only been to ever once. And it's sort of like you
mm,
say, you don't know what the teaching is sometimes when you're there. Most of them are really peaceful and nice. I spent most of my time in outer space or things that would be seen as sort of astral
mm,
type visions. I also have like a
mhm,
lot of experience when we're doing different kinds of healing work with the earth-based worlds and the water worlds, but in my
mm,
own preference, I end up always in outer space, something with that. So going through like black holes into other kinds of star systems, or finding portals that take you into other galaxies. And then there's, from my experience, so many different planets with so many different kinds of consciousness. I have no way to know whether there's actual physical life there or not, but there is certainly different kinds of consciousness, and
yeah.
so they're present and communicative. And so all different kinds of visions of crystalline cities and beings of light, and this kind of like really high vibration consciousness. It's societies of bliss, societies of stability and harmony, societies that have
Hmm.
transcended sort of the nastier elements of human life. So places where war no longer exists or they never had it, places with balanced, harmonious economies, places with this sort of like infinite knowledge is almost built within anything. Anything you touch just teaches you like automatically, and it's always like
Ooh.
a download. It's not like when you go to a museum here and you put on the headphones so that they can teach you with words. It's like, oh, I got it, and kind of everything that we meet or experience. Or there are other realms that would teach us the healing arts for what we would share here of earth. So we would go through just vision after vision after vision of how to heal different kinds of illnesses, and then people would show up with those illnesses, and then you would know what to do to be able to help them, really through a kind of like energy healing or energy work. So things where you're
Mm,
not using plant medicines, but really just you're using ecoros, you're using sound, you're using intention, uh, as a way to be able to help people. And so those are all really common. And then just endless numbers of what people call entities or spirits. There's just truly an endless number of shapes, colors, vibe, intention by them, etc. So I've used to say that in a typical ayahuasca ceremony, we would work with billions of spirits, and people would think I was like just making stuff up, and either that or whatever. They're like, wait, I don't know what he's talking about. But you get into the visions, and then you start to understand there's kinds and multiplicities of them. So you can be in
mhm.
realms where you're seeing these things that look like angelic beings, and there could be, hundreds of millions in the vision. They're just through the vision everywhere. And then you're calling on it. You're like, oh, hey, can you help these people? And so that's what we mean. So just in asking for that help to share that, and so we learn to, work with those kinds of visions, and then through the vision guide and direct that to everybody. And anything we ask for, we can start to work with. So, you want to understand more about telepathy, and so we open that for you, and that may be one session, two sessions, it may be 10 ceremonies, 50 ceremonies. We don't know how many it's going to ultimately take in terms of time and intention to manifest, but we do know that as long as we stay it, we can develop those capacities within our own brain to be able to then have those experiences. And so
Mhm.
yeah, as soon as like the portals open, and then as soon as the source opens, I think it really is truly limitless, and it's just up to us to continue to explore. And I think one of the big differences between ayahuasca and smoking DMT is that in ayahuasca, you have the chemicals associated with ayahuasca that allow the DMT to stay in the brain for much longer. And so it can
Mm,
stay for, hours to countless hours. The longest I've ever seen is close to 20 hours, or a little more than 20 hours. And so of like real actual visions, just somebody still in visions the whole time. And so, typical is like 5 to 6 hours, and then longer is 10 to 12 hours. And so it
mm,
gives you a lot of time to be able to learn. And then what also is really interesting is the time distortions. So in 10 or 12 hours, it can seem like thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or just 1 hour of those 10 hours could seem like 10,000 years. And then the other hours might seem like a second, And
yeah.
so that's also really interesting as well. Well, I
Okay.
just found that the ayahuasca visions always allowed me to be able to communicate with everybody that I communicated with in a very natural way. And so it was like
Mhm.
if I wanted to communicate with mushrooms inside the ceremony, the visions would become very mushroom like. and the
Mm.
vibe would become very mushroom like. And it wasn't like talking through a telephone to somewhere else. It was like the ayahuasca was opening up some kind of gateway or dimensionality to mushrooms, and then that knowledge would be available, and the you know, what I call the spirit of it, sort of the main thing that talks with you and communicates with you when you take it, would be there. And I found that with lots of different kinds of plant medicine. So if cannabis was there, it was a completely different vibe to mushrooms. If you know, amanita was there, that was different to psilocybin. If kava kava was there, that was different to all of them, et cetera. It was like so
Mm.
particular in the communication. It just felt like it was a way that, oh, it was a way to open up channels to that communication. On a few occasions, we actually used the chants and the icaros associated with the other plants. And then it's like the whole vibe becomes, or at least for us, became as if we had actually taken the other plants or the other fungi, which we, you know, hadn't
Mm.
done. And so the ayahuasca actually, it's like it shapeshifted and transformed into as if we had, you know, taken psilocybin without taking it. So that's why I was just asking, because I always found that to be very interesting, that the ayahuasca had this sort of intra communicative capacity. And so sometimes it would, you know, be just like just plain ayahuasca visions and those patterns. And then other times it would seem to allow the vibe or the energy of the other plants to come in and allow that communication. We just thought of it as sort of like an infinite gatekeeper, that depending on the channel that you were calling, it could, you know, form that connection and allow that connection to take place.
Yeah.
And there was just always this very like copacetic, friendly, uh, balanced vibe between all of the different plants, because there's this culture that says that they don't get along, that you're this one or you're that one, or, you know, I just never understood that myself, because it was like, wait a second, we work with hundreds of medicinal plants, and we ingest all of them, and they all go into us, and on ayahuasca you can feel them all and you can connect with them. And so the cultures had, you know, created some of these different, or the tribes had created some of these different differentiators between them all. And I think we, as Westerners, experience a much more diverse, you know, life in general. We travel more. We have capacity to do that. We're on the internet more, so we see more different kinds of information and data from the rest of the world. We have an
Mm.
opportunity, like in the psychonaut community, to actually work with different kinds of plants that are or are not indigenous to certain areas. And so I think that that just opens us up to a wealth of possibility that wasn't there before. And as the years go on and more people work with this that have a deep calling, I think we're going to get more information about it. But right now, it's still really early.